Hey everyone, how's it going? Forrest here, again with another installment of my complete analysis of all of Bach's chorale harmonizations. Okay, 3, 2, 1. Hey everyone, how's it going? Forrest here, again with another installment of my complete analysis of all of Bach's chorale harmonizations. Today we're looking at Gott Vater, sende deinen Geist, which translates to God our Father, send your Spirit. Not too much to say about this chorale. A couple of interesting harmonic tidbits in the second system, but more or less everything's functionally harmonic. Everything's doing pretty much exactly what we expect it to do. That doesn't, detract from the beauty of the chorale, but regardless, we should just hop right into the analysis. So no key signature. We start on A minor. We end on A major. I reckon we are in the key of A minor, and we have a couple of passing tones in the inner voices here before we have another A minor triad where we rotate some of the voices, or actually the bass is the only voice that moves. The other voices are just a byproduct of neighbor tones, so no need to reanalyze. Passing tone in the tenor. Then we have F, A, E, and A. You might be tempted to call that a 6-7 chord, but I think this D is our chord tone here, and this is actually D minor over F, which would be 4-6. Then we have C, A, E, and E, which is A minor in first inversion. Tenor skips up a third, that is a chord tone. Then we have D, B, F, and D with a passing tone, a neighbor tone in the tenor. That is B diminished over D, so 2-6. Bach loves 2-6 chords. We then have G sharp, B, E, and E. That is E major over G sharp, that's our dominant in first inversion. We then have A, E, and C, that's A minor in root position, before we get a half cadence in the key of A minor, E, G sharp, E, and B, where we cadence on 5. Notice how the fifth of the chord is in the melody as well. We find that most half cadences have the fifth of the chord in the melody in Bach's chorales. Okay, looking ahead to the end of the next phrase, we have a half cadence in the key of A minor again, so no need to look for any modulation. We have C, A, E, and A, which is A minor in first inversion. A couple of passing tones in the outer voices before we get A, E, A, and C. That's an A minor triad in root position, so we'll just change the figured bass to 5-3. E, E, G sharp, and B, that's E major in root position, that's a 5 chord. Then we have A, E, A, and C, another root position A minor triad with some passing tones in the outer voices again. Here we have C, E, G, and E, and where we might be tempted to call this a 3 chord, which technically on the beat it is. I think this G is an accented non-chord tone, and this is actually just an inversion of the A minor triad. But then we get G sharp, E, B, and D, another 5-6 chord, but this time it's a 5-7 chord, but still a 5 chord in first inversion. We have A, E, A, and C, which is another A minor triad in root position before we cadence on E major again. So we see just a slight variation on the previous phrase ending. Okay, kind of interestingly, instead of getting a cadence in the key of A minor, or an authentic cadence in the key of A minor, we actually get a perfect authentic cadence in the key of G major, and I think we modulate straight away. We have 5 going to 1 here, A, E, A, and C, which would be a tonic triad in the key of A minor, but it also is the supertonic in the key of G major, where we have this passing 7th in the bass and another passing tone in the melody. And here we have F sharp, so F sharp, A, D, and A, that's a D major in first inversion, which is 5-6. Passing tones in the alto and the bass before we get D, D, F sharp, and A. That's taking a D major triad and turning it into root position. Passing 7th in the bass, we then have B, D, F, and D, or F sharp rather, which is a bit of a deceptive progression because we would expect a G major chord here, but here we get B minor, which is very interesting. Passing tone in the melody before we get E, E, G, and B, which is E minor, so we get a little bit of a turnaround here, 2-5, expecting to go to 1, but we go to 3, which goes to 6, which is where we expect 3 to go in most cases. Then we have E leaping down to C here, or skipping down to C, which is a non-chord tone, B going up to C here as well in the melody, interesting seeing the doublings here. We've seen a couple of outer voice doublings in the previous phrase as well. And then we have D, D, G, and A. I reckon this G is just a 4-3 suspension over the bass, and what's being implied here is a 5, passing 7th. Also, this is like a double non-chord tone figure here before we get 5-7 on the next quarter note. D, C, F sharp, and A, and then we cadence on 1 G major, G, B, D, and G. Okay, the next phrase is maybe the most interesting in the whole chorale because it has some interesting modulation or modulatory movement, but we have another half cadence in the key of A minor at the end, but I don't think we go to A minor directly. I think we go to A minor through C major. We have G going to C here, C, C, E, and G. That's a 4-chord in root position. But I think this is also our tonic in the key of C major, and this is just what it sounds like to me, especially because we have the F natural in the alto. So we have some passing tones going on here in the the alto and the bass, and then we have E, G, G, and C, which is just inverting the tonic triad again. We've seen this same idea before where we take the bass and just invert the triad, also with the alto being involved as well, if not on the same beat, the beat afterwards. But then we have some more passing tones. Here they are in the lower voices. Then we get G, B, D, and B, which is our dominant, G major. Passing tones in the lower voices again before we get E, G, E, and C, which is our tonic triad again in first inversion. A couple of passing tones in the upper voices this time, and then we have D, C, G, and E. However, I think this D is an accented non-chord tone, and this is just C major going to C major again, this time in root position, and this is where I think we modulate. The C is our common chord. It's now the mediant in the key of A minor, and we get G sharp on the next beat, so that lines up well. We see 3 go to some type of dominant triad with some regularity. This would be an example of a transitive progression, G sharp, B, D, and D. That's G sharp diminished over B, which would be 7-6. 7 usually goes to 3. 3 doesn't usually go to 7, but we do see 3 go to 7 in some of Bach's vocal music. I just think, if it can go in one direction, why can't it go in the other direction? And Bach is kind of proving that postulate to be correct. And I liken it to the transitive property where if, like in math, not that I'm a math person or anything, I just remember it from grade school. If A equals B, then B equals A. So if 3 can go to 7, 7 can also go to 3, if 7 wants to go to 3, and the voice leading is the same, the voice leading can go the same in the other direction. It just takes you towards the dominant from a different perspective. And here we have 7-6 here, then we have A, E, A, and C, which is a A minor triad in root position, and then we have another E major triad at the end of this phrase, E, E, G sharp, and B. Then at this phrase, we end the next phrase with another half cadence in the key of A minor. However, I think we do so through the key of G major, and maybe even the idea of C major towards the end as well, but I think we have another mid-modulation of a phrase. So we have A, E, and A, C, E, and A, which is an A minor triad, which, similar to the G major phrase here, is a move back to the key of G major. It's now our supertonic with some passing tones in 3 of the voices. And then we have F sharp, A, D, and C, which is a D7 triad in first inversion, 5-6-5, which on the next 8th note takes the chord and puts it in root position but removes the third, so we can call it a 7-5 instead of 7-5-3. And that takes us to G major, G, B, D, and B. Or does it? We have an F natural here, but then we have A as well. So this A as a passing tone kind of messes things up. So we can call this 1, and maybe if we go to the key of C major, we can call this 5, because it's kind of what it sounds like. But I think what we could also do is we can call this 5 of 4 because of that F natural. So there's clearly some dominance going on as the phrases allied, or the different keys allied with one another. But then we have E, G, E, and C, which is where we expect the 5 chord to go to C major. Apologies. And then we have a couple of passing tones in 3 of the voices. We have D, F, D, and G, which is kind of like a 5/7 chord without the third, but I think that's more coincidental than anything else. Maybe though. Then we have C, C, G, and E, which is taking the chord C major, the previous C major, and turning it into root position, which is when I think we go to the key of A minor again, and this becomes our 3, similar to how the previous phrase worked. However, we did so via G. I think honestly, whether or not you think modulations occurred here, and maybe this was just C going to 4, or sorry, a G major chord going to a 4 chord, or whether you see it as everything being in the key of C and this F sharp being a 5 of 5. I'm hearing it this way because maybe, you know, the idea of C major and the idea of G major have been separate ideas in my head. Maybe that's why it impacts me this way, but I do hear these as separate keys. And then this 3 chord in the key of A minor goes to A, F, and D, which is actually what I think is happening is we have some accented non-chord tones here, and this is actually G sharp, B, E, and D, which is another 5/6/5 chord, just with some accented non-chord tones. And then we have A, D, E, and C. He does this figure in the tenor a lot, actually, where he just anticipates a non-chord tone with the chord tone of the previous chord. Then we get A, E, and C, which is our tonic triad and root position. That's where we expect 5/6 or 5/6/5 to go. And then we go to E major, E, G sharp, E, and B, which is our 5 chord. And our last cadence in the chorale is a perfect authentic cadence in the key of A minor. It's our only cadence on an A triad, and it uses the Picardy third, so we never get an authentic cadence where A minor is our final chord, which is kind of an interesting. It's something that we expect to see more cadential stressing of the tonic, but we never really get it. We only get half cadences, which I guess is a unique hallmark of this chorale in particular. But we don't have to look for any modulation points moving forward, so this is good. We have E, B, G sharp, and E. That's just another E major triad. No need to reanalyze. A, C, A, and E. Tonic triad and root position. Passing 7th in the bass. We have D, F. We have F, C sharp, G, and E. I reckon this F's an accented non-chord tone, and it's really a E, C sharp, G, and E, which is C sharp diminished over E. That's the leading tone of D, which is our 4, so this is 7/6 of 4. And on the next beat we get F, D, F, and D, which is D minor, with 2/3 and 2 roots actually, but still a 4 chord in first inversion. Some passing tones in the outer voices before we get D, D, F, and B, which is B diminished in first inversion. That's kind of an interesting progression. And then we get 4 passing non-chord tones, I guess, and that spells C, E, E, and C, which is kind of interesting. I guess that is a 3 chord technically, but I feel like this is a rootless tonic triad. This might be a case where we don't actually have an implied triad. Well, we have an implied triad, but I don't know why I erased those. Those are still non-chord tones. I'm not sure if there's a chord that's actually happening here. Maybe there's the idea of 3 happening. Maybe there's the idea of 1/6 happening here. Who knows? But on the next beat we have B, D, F, and B anyways, which is another 2/6 chord. And as we drop the lowest voice to here, where we have B, which is a chord tone, and G sharp, which is not a chord tone, that makes me think actually something different is happening rather than 2/6. If we have G sharp, B, D, and F, that is 7 fully diminished. We're seeing a 3 go to another 7 chord like we saw earlier. This time it's in first inversion. So this would be a 5/6/5 depending on how you look at it. So I guess this this D is a chord tone, this B is a chord tone, this D, this F, this G sharp, they're all chord tones, but I think the G sharp is our primary chordal target, so I'll circle it because all of these are chord tones, but you might hear this as a 2-6 as well. We then have C, C, E, and A. That is a first inversion A minor triad, which is interesting. We would expect we would expect 7-6 to go to 1-6 because the B going to C, that makes sense, or going down from B to A. I guess it just depends on the way that it resolves, but we're not at the cadence yet, so maybe he didn't want as strong of a resolution. Here we have a non-chord tone D, A, F, and B. This B is a non-chord tone, this F's a non-chord tone, but this A is a chord tone, and that would make this a 2-6-5, a B minor 7 flat 5. So we have a passing 2-6-5 chord before we get E, G sharp, E, and B. We would expect that to go to a 5 chord, so that's good. Then we have some non-chord tones here. We have D, A, F, and B, so it's kind of like a respelling of the B diminished chord, but I think that's more contrapuntal than anything else, like suspensions and non-chord tones and whatnot. And then we have E, A, E, and B, so that's just another suspension where we get the resolution on the next beat with the G sharp and the D happening here, but this is just another implied 5 chord, so it's just 5 over 2 beats, like a dominant contrapuntal figure over these 2 beats before we cadence on 1, A, E, C sharp, and A, the C sharp making it major, of course, because we're at the end of a minor chorale, and most of Bach's minor chorales end on a major triad, especially because the majority of these chorales are the last movement, so I expect he wants the cantata to end on a lighter note, even if the original key is in minor. But that concludes today's analysis. All in all, actually some pretty interesting harmonic movement. Counterpoint still is difficult to force a tonal lens on, but regardless, you get the gist of the fact that there are some chords that are being implied there. Sometimes you have to make broader generalizations for the sake of making the analysis digestible. If we went and analyzed every individual interval, it would be kind of taking away from the point of thinking about a chord progression that's happening, and there's definitely chords that are happening in this music, even though Bach devolves into counterpoint at certain moments in the chorale. But all in all, it's a pretty straightforward chorale to analyze. Interesting proportion of half cadences to authentic cadences here, especially because the authentic cadences don't often occur in the key of the tonic. Lots of different interesting tidbits that occur in this chorale, but I will end the analysis on that note. Thank you so much for watching the video. Thank you so much for continuing to support the channel. If you're interested in analysis, I upload a video every day. I'm currently analyzing all of the Bach chorales, so if you're catching this video while I'm on this journey, feel free to subscribe and hit the notification bell if you want to be notified of when I upload, and if you'd like to go on the journey with me. There are hundreds of videos scheduled for the future, and like I said, I upload every day, so you could maybe have that to look forward to. Okay, that being said, thank you so much for watching the video again, and I hope you take care.